My name is Sophia Martinez, and I'm 32 years old. 6 months ago, my brother tried to humiliate me at my own wedding by calling me a gold digger in front of 300 guests. Today, he's begging me not to cancel the contract that keeps his law firm afloat. But to understand how we got here, I need to go back to the beginning. Growing up, Carlos was the golden child. 3 years older, valedictorian, Columbia Law School, the son who could do no wrong. I was the disappointment, the daughter who dropped out of college to play with computers and waste her potential. My parents, both professors, never let me forget it. Every family dinner came with comparisons. Carlos just made partner. They'd announce while I served tables to fund my coding boot camp. Carlos bought a condo. They'd beam while I slept on a friend's couch, working 18-hour days on my startup. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" became their refrain. Professional, respectable, successful. What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that while Carlos was climbing the corporate ladder in his expensive suits, I was building something extraordinary from my laptop in coffee shops. It started as a simple idea, AI-powered legal document automation. Law firms were drowning in paperwork, paying junior associates 6 figures to do work that could be automated. I knew because Carlos complained about it constantly, mocking the grunt work, while billing clients $400 an hour for it. "That's why we have paralegals in first years," he'd laugh. "Let them suffer through the mindless stuff." I listened, coded, and kept quiet. By 25, my company, LegalFlow AI, had our first major client. By 27, we were processing documents for 20 firms. By 30, we were the industry standard, though I kept my role as founder and CEO quiet, operating under my middle name and mother's maiden name, Sophia Chin. My family had no idea. They saw me working from home, assumed I was freelancing, and continued their pity. "Poor Sophia," my mother would sigh, still finding herself. Then I met James. He was everything my family should have loved: Harvard MBA, investment banker, came from a good family, with a house in the Hamptons. We met at a tech conference where I was speaking. My family thought I was waitressing. He was funny, kind, and refreshingly unimpressed by his own pedigree. "Fair warning," he said on our third date. "My family's kind of awful. Old money, old attitudes. They're going to be weird about you being Latina." "Fair warning back," I replied. "My family's going to be weird about you being rich." He laughed. "How rich do they think I am?" "Rich enough," I said, not mentioning that my company's latest valuation put my net worth at roughly triple his. When I introduced James to my family, their reaction was exactly what I'd expected. My mother practically genuflected. My father started calling him son. "And Carlos?" Carlos's eyes turned calculating. "Investment banking," he said, shaking James's hand too firmly. "Good money in that. Sophia's lucky to have found you." "I'm the lucky one," James said loyally, but Carlos had already moved on, talking about his law firm, dropping Harvard references, establishing his place in the pecking order. The engagement sent my family into overdrive. Suddenly, I was no longer the disappointment. I was the daughter who'd landed a rich husband. The one who'd finally figured it out. "I always knew you'd find your way," my mother said, admiring my engagement ring. "Marrying well is its own kind of success." Carlos was less subtle. "Just don't screw it up," he warned. "Guys like James have options. Don't give him reasons to explore them." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. "Just, maybe tone down the whole startup thing," he suggested. "No guy wants to hear about his wife's little business dreams. Be supportive of his career. That's your job now." I bit my tongue. In 2 months, his firm would be pitching for LegalFlow AI's expansion contract, a deal worth $50 million over 5 years. I wondered if he'd still call them little business dreams then. The prenup negotiations were when things got interesting. James insisted on one, not because he cared, but because his family demanded it. "They think every woman is after the family money," he apologized. "It's insulting, but it'll shut them up." "I want one too," I said, which surprised him. "Let's make it fair. Full financial disclosure, protect both our assets." Carlos, who'd appointed himself my legal advisor despite practicing corporate law, not family law, reviewed the documents. His face went through several expressions as he read my financial statements. "This can't be right," he said. "These numbers are accurate," I confirmed. "But how? You dropped out of college. You were waitressing." "I was funding my startup," I corrected. "While waitressing. And I didn't drop out, I graduated early online. Just didn't walk because I was closing our series of funding that weekend." He stared at the papers showing my 73% ownership of a company worth $400 million. This is Legal Flow AI? The Legal Flow AI. The one your firm is pitching to next month? I smiled sweetly. Yes. His face went pale. Sophia, we need to talk about. No, I said firmly. We don't. You've spent 10 years calling me a disappointment. You don't get to change your tune now. But I could help. The way you helped when I was sleeping on couches, when I was working 3 jobs to fund my prototype. I stood up. Keep reviewing the prenup, Carlos. Do your job. That's all I need from you. The wedding planning revealed everyone's true colors. James's family tried to control everything, assuming they were paying. My family tried to minimize our side of the guest list, embarrassed by our humble relatives. Maybe we don't need to invite Tia Rosa, my mother suggested. She might feel out of place. Tia Rosa, who housed me for free when I was broke? I said. She's getting a seat at the head table. Carlos was the worst, constantly making jokes about me marrying up and warning James about what he was getting into. He'd tell stories about my failures, spinning my entrepreneurial struggles as character flaws. Remember when she tried to start that little computer thing? He'd laugh. Living off ramen, thinking she'd be the next Steve Jobs. Thank God she found James to take care of her. James would defend me, but I told him not to bother. Let them think what they want, I said. It'll make the wedding more interesting. I should have known Carlos would use his best man speech to humiliate me one last time. He was drunk on expensive champagne and his own importance, standing at the microphone in his designer tuxedo, commanding the room's attention. The speech started normally enough, childhood stories, jokes about young love. Then his tone shifted. But seriously, James, he said, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. I have to warn you about my sister. Growing up, Sophia always had expensive tastes. Champagne dreams on a beer budget, you know? She'd date guys for their cars, their connections. I can't tell you how many times she borrowed money from boyfriends. The room stirred uncomfortably. James's hand found mine under the table. So when she introduced us to you, Carlos continued, successful, wealthy, connected, we all thought, here we go again. But bigger this time. The ultimate prize. Carlos, my father hissed from his table. But Carlos was on a roll. She's only after your money, he announced, raising his glass. But hey, at least she's ambitious about it. The room went dead silent. 300 guests stared in horror. James's family looked vindicated. My mother appeared to be having a stroke. And James, sweet, loyal James, started to stand, ready to defend me. I touched his arm, stood instead, and took the microphone from my brother's hand. Thank you, Carlos, I said calmly. Since we're being honest about money, I should probably tell everyone. The prenup James and I signed protects his assets from mine. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Carlos smirked, thinking I was making a joke. No, really, I continued. James is worth about $8 million. Impressive, right? Especially for someone our age. My net worth, as of our last valuation, is $292 million. The laughter stopped. Carlos's smirk froze. You see, I said, turning to address the room. While my brother was calling me a failure, I was building Legal Flow AI. We're the company that processes 40% of corporate legal documents in the country, including, coincidentally, the contracts his law firm desperately needs to stay competitive. I looked directly at Carlos. The company that just hired your firm, dear brother? That's mine. The $50 million contract your partners have been salivating over? I'll be signing that on Monday. Or not. I haven't decided. His face had gone from red to white. I could see him doing the math, realizing how much of his firm's projected revenue depended on my signature. But tonight isn't about business, I said, smiling at the stunned crowd. It's about love. James and I fell in love when he thought I was a struggling entrepreneur, and I thought he'd be another boring banker. We were both wrong. He's brilliant and kind, and the only person in this room who knew about my company and didn't care. I raised my own glass. So here's to my husband, who fell in love with a woman his family warned him was after his money, while my family promised him I was worthless. To James, who saw me for exactly who I am and loved me anyway. James stood, pulled me into a kiss, and the room exploded in applause. Well, most of the room. Carlos slunk back to his seat while my parents sat in shocked silence. The rest of the reception was fascinating. My relatives, the ones my mother had tried to hide, suddenly found themselves at the center of attention. Tia Rosa was chatting with tech investors. My cousin Maria, who my parents called unfortunate for being a single mother, was getting business cards from startup founders who wanted her accounting services. Carlos tried to corner me during the dancing. Sophia, we need to talk about the contract. No, I said. We don't. Submit your proposal like everyone else. May the best firm win. But we're family. Were we family when you called me a gold digger in front of everyone I care about? I asked. Were we family when you spent years mocking my dreams? I didn't know. Exactly, I said. You didn't know because you never asked. You never cared. You just assumed I was a failure because I didn't follow your path. My parents tried next. Mija, why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, tears in her eyes. Would it have mattered? I replied. Would you have been proud of me building a company, or would you have just pressured me to give Carlos a job? Their silence was answer enough. The Monday after the wedding, Carlos's firm submitted their proposal. It was desperate, offering discounts and perks they couldn't afford. My CFO laughed when she saw it. They're betting everything on this contract. I know, I said. So what do you want to do? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to reject them outright, let them twist in the wind. But that would hurt innocent employees who had nothing to do with Carlos's behavior. Give them the contract, I decided. But at our standard rate. No special treatment. And Carlos is banned from the account. If I see him in any meeting, any email, any interaction with my company, we pull the contract immediately. It was worse than rejection. Carlos had to watch his colleagues work on the biggest account of their careers while being explicitly excluded. He had to explain to his partners why the sister he'd called a gold digger wouldn't allow him near her multimillion-dollar account. 6 months later, the dynamic has completely shifted. My parents call constantly, wanting to reconnect and understand my journey. They name-drop me at university functions, the daughter who revolutionized legal technology. Carlos sends monthly emails apologizing, updating me on his life like we're close. He mentions stress, therapy, and learning from his mistakes. His firm's survival depends on my contract renewal next year, and he knows it. James and I bought a house in Palo Alto. I paid cash, which horrified his family and delighted mine. We're planning to start a family, and I've already heard my mother dropping hints about gifted grandchildren with entrepreneurial genes. You know what the funny thing is? James said last week, they all spent so much time worrying about you taking my money, they never considered you might have your own. That's not the funny part, I said. The funny part is they still don't get it. They're proud of me now because I'm rich. Not because I built something amazing, or helped transform an industry, or employed 500 people. Just because I have money. Carlos gets it, James pointed out. He's terrified of you now. He's terrified of my bank account, I corrected. There's a difference. Last month, at a family dinner, Carlos raised a toast. To Sophia, he said. The most successful Martinez. Everyone clinked glasses and smiled. My parents beamed. Tia Rosa caught my eye and winked. She knew what they were really toasting. They weren't celebrating the girl who fought for her dreams. They were celebrating the one with $292 million. But here's the thing. I am the same person. The same disappointment who dropped out of college to pursue a silly startup. The same failure who embarrassed them by waitressing. The same gold digger who couldn't possibly love James for himself. The only thing that changed was their ability to see my worth in numbers they understood. My name is Sophia Martinez. I'm 32 years old. My brother called me a gold digger at my wedding, in front of everyone who mattered to me. He thought he was exposing my true nature. Instead, he exposed his own, and that of everyone who spent years counting me out because I didn't follow their script. The prenup does protect James's assets from mine. All $8 million of them are safe from my $250 million and growing. Sometimes, when Carlos sends another groveling email, I forward it to James with a note. Still think I married you for your money? He always responds the same way. Obviously. That investment banking salary is irresistible. We laugh because we can. Because we know what really matters. Because the best revenge isn't just success. It's success that makes your doubters dependent on your signature. Carlos was right about one thing in his speech. I did have expensive tastes. I just had the ability to afford them myself.